What it is, cucks, this is your boy the hater, and it's time for another video. I feel like I haven't left this basement since my last video. I mean, I went to bed, and then I got here in the early afternoon, and just have been working till now, basically, But that hell week is over, cucks. As you can probably already tell, my energy's picking back up. Tomorrow will be better than today. The day after will be better than tomorrow. Every day will be better for the hater. Now, with that being said, what it is, cucks, once more. Today's video is about the WWE gaslight problem. Now, whereas AEW, for example, has a million things wrong with it, and quite frankly, it's to the point, exactly like I predicted, that AEW is completely obsolete and irrelevant. It's like they failed so many times in the last 5-6 years that it's not even worth discussing anymore. Like, they sign people, those people do nothing, and they leave. Like, for example, Matt Hardy or Sting, right? They just came, nobody gave a flying fuck, no one's gonna remember it, and they're gone. But one thing that AEW doesn't do, largely because it can't, because there has yet to be someone who leaves AEW and comes back, except for, it just came into my mind right now, Stu Grayson, who is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life as like a gimmick, right? This guy's name is probably not Stu. And if your name is literally anything other than Stu, you have no reason to be called Stu, right? And also, he was just like a complete jobber in Dark Order, But anyways, that's not here nor there, right? The point is, the WWE, unlike AEW, does have the opportunity to gaslight you. They can straight up just lie to you. They can shit in your face and tell you that you've been hit with a pie. They can piss in your ear and tell you that it's raining. You understand what I'm saying? They can step in your shoe and tell you that it's your fault. And that's exactly what's happening, The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because of the recent Rusev promo, right? Now, not specifically the Rusev promo, but what it represents, right? Basically, Rusev has to be reintroduced to the WWE, right? Obviously, a lot of people don't know who the fuck he is because there's a lot of newer fans because all the old ones keep leaving. But the ones that do know, they remember, you know what I mean? They remember Rusev. They know exactly what Rusev is. He's a guy who's honestly quite entertaining. Big, brutish guy, decent moveset. He could do with a better finisher, but decent moveset, you know what I mean? Somewhat entertaining, has good presence. He's got a lot of things going for him, right? But realistically, he's like on the Obafemi level. I mean, he's never going to be like this massive star that people thought he was going to be. You know what I mean? So with that being said, Rusev has to come out now and tell you how this time it's different, right? And that's what I think pisses off a lot of people. The WWE lie of this time, it's different, right? Like, how many fucking times have we heard that? How many independent wrestlers were supposed to come along and change everything about wrestling, right? How many times has Kevin Owens tried to reinvent himself and say that I'm here to bring about change? How many times has Samoa Joe cut that promo of like, things are going to get different around here, and then he ends up doing nothing, right? And nobody talks about all of these failures, which individually are not that big of a deal, but when lumped together as they should be, it's like, bro, think about what you're saying to us. You're straight up lying, you know what I mean? You don't intend to do anything. You just tell us it's different, then you don't do anything, and you're like, hopefully no one will notice, right? Like, a great example would be, remember that one random-ass episode of Raw where the McMahon family came out, like Shane, Vince, and Steph? They came out, and they said, like, things are going to be different from now on. The brand split's gonna matter, and like, it hasn't mattered since that day at all. It hasn't mattered more, not even one day. You know what I mean? Like, it never mattered, right? Except for when it was first started, The brand split's a complete waste of time. But that's just an example, right? Here's another example, my personal favorite. Drew McIntyre, right? Drew McIntyre, and I know there's a lot of people that like Drew McIntyre. In some ways, I'm one of them, right? But I cannot excuse the fact that Drew McIntyre is literally one of the worst wrestling characters of all time, right? Drew McIntyre is all over the place. Drew McIntyre is too emotional for real men to get behind, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about get behind, spiritually. I'm sure a lot of men want to get behind him in other ways. But, that's neither here nor there, good for them. But the point is, right? Drew McIntyre, he has this like subtle gimmick that changes like once in a while, right? Remember when he started coming out with a sword and they're like, the sword is called Angela, which is named after Drew McIntyre's mother. Like, can you think of anything more lame than that? Like, how did he even agree to this? Someone suggested this and he should have been like, keep your mouth. Like he should have pulled out Will Smith. Keep my mom out your mouth, right? And she should have Claymored that guy in real life. Shoot Claymore, you know? But in reality, he needs this help, right? Because Drew McIntyre is one-dimensional and extremely boring. And quite frankly, he doesn't have a character at all. His character is just, it's like Seth Rollins. It's a series of nicknames with no actual character change. Like Seth Rollins just flip-flops from being face and heel, which is perfectly normal, right? Perfectly normal wrestling convention. Carlito did it for years. The Rock did it. Stone Cold did it. Rikishi did it. A lot of people did it. No worries. That happens, and that's going to happen, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with doing that and pretending that every time you switch characters, something interesting happened, right? There's something wrong with, and this is the part where it's specific to Drew McIntyre, and also Seth Rollins, but mostly Drew, right? There's something wrong with not changing the character and telling us you changed the character, right? Like, I think, sometimes people don't understand what I'm saying, but I think this is one we can all agree. And I'll put it to you this way. How many times have you heard Wade Barrett or another announcer convince us that this version of Drew McIntyre is different, right? Every time Drew McIntyre is mad, which is all the time, because all he does is lose every match, it's a new Drew McIntyre. This is an attempt to rehabilitate Drew McIntyre and basically say, oh, remember the Drew McIntyre that lost to CM Punk, who's half his size, and who Drew McIntyre would eat in 3 seconds? Remember that guy? Yeah, well, that guy doesn't count anymore because the new version of Drew McIntyre, who, by the way, behaves, acts, talks, and wrestles the exact same way as the last version that got his ass kicked, this is a new one, right? And people are like, wow, this new Drew McIntyre. And like, they do this because the fans let them, right? It's that simple. For example, Chris Jericho, one of my personal favorites. I would argue that Chris Jericho is probably the objective GOAT, right? He's not my GOAT, but I think he's the objective GOAT in terms of like what he's been able to bring to the dance, if you will, right? Jericho has reinvented himself one time. He went from the Ayatollah of rock and roll to the serious suit guy, right? That's it. Everything else is not a reinvention. Him coming out and 1 week calling himself the Wizard and the next week calling himself the Ocho, that's just him getting over like names and catchphrases, which is a talent. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not a reinvention. Like in AEW, he's basically just been Jericho. He's been the Ayatollah of rock and roll his entire career, except for that 2 or 3 year period where he had that other gimmick that was very successful, right? Beyond that, it's the same guy. Oh, the Painmaker is just Jericho. And he doesn't smile. That's the only difference, right? The Learning Tree Jericho is like the closest thing to another reinvention, right? Because that's like a goofy ass, like completely different, from the other two, right? And, it has elements of both in some ways, but you understand what I'm getting at, right? But fans will argue, oh, he's reinvented himself like 12 times. If you go to Seth Rollins' Wikipedia, which I will do while talking to you motherfucks, right? And you know what? I'm gonna quote it actually because I wasn't going to. I was just going to be like, oh, it is what it is and paraphrase it for you. But I'll just say it. And right here, I pulled it up. It says here, known for his nicknames, The Visionary, The Revolutionary, and The Architect, which fucking mean absolutely nothing. He's not, why is he a visionary? Why is he a revolutionary? Why is he an architect? He's done none of those things. He hasn't designed anything, right? The Shield just came to be randomly. He hasn't envisioned something that has come true. And he hasn't revolutionized anything. He's just another jobber. He's another Dolph Ziggler, right? And then it says here, same sentence, right? Clause 2. He is characterized by his over-the-top, eccentric persona, hard pause. I personally am not convinced at all, like not convinced at all, cucks, that Seth Rollins is even an over-the-top, eccentric personality. He is a parody of that, right? Like, the implication that he's like this Joker-like figure is ridiculous. Joker, even the cartoon Joker, has like 100 times more charisma than Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is just a loser who thinks he's good at this role, right? He acts like a fucking retard. Nobody cares at all, right? And people are like, wow, he's so eccentric. He's not, you know who's eccentric? Like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. That's eccentric. Seth Rollins can never pull that off. He's too much of a dork. But anyway, it's neither here or there, right? I don't want to get caught up on that part because the worst part is yet to come, right? So he's characterized by his over-the-top, eccentric persona. Like we just said, all of this is gaslighting. None of it is true. And here's the part that I'm going to have to edit this motherfucker right here, right? One of you go and edit this. And is revered as one of the most versatile characters and in-ring professional wrestlers of all time. Now, Rollins is a good wrestler in the ring in terms of like his athleticism. He has interesting moves, etc., etc. But he is not one of the most versatile characters. He is one character, motherfuckers. He was the same in the Shield too. He was a whiny bitch in the Shield. You know, he's always just whining and moaning, right? He is not this over-the-top character. He is not a visionary, revolutionary, an architect, or any other bullshit, you know what I mean? And he's not versatile. So this is the kind of lies that tell you, it's like, hey, remember Matt Hardy? Well, he was pretty versatile, right? Yeah, no, Seth Rollins, widely regarded. He's revered as one of the most versatile characters. No, he fucking isn't. No, Taka Michinoku and Funaki were more versatile because they were Japanese wrestlers, and then afterwards they had the dubs, right? And then after that, Funaki became SmackDown #1 announcer, you know what I'm saying? Which was fucking awesome, right? Like, Funaki has literally, objectively, has more versatility than Seth Rollins. But no one's gonna point that out, right? Because Funaki doesn't matter in WWE history as Seth Rollins does. They're gonna just tell you that Seth Rollins is a big deal, right? And this brings me back to Rusev. And not specifically Rusev, but what Rusev represents, right? How many times are we going to be told, basically, hey, forget everything you saw. Forget the fact that Rusev was losing to, like, signature moves of mid-card nobodies. Forget that Cody Rhodes was an undercard nobody while people that are still in the company were main eventers. You know what I mean? Like, Cody Rhodes, like, just think about it. Cody Rhodes, when he was an undercard nobody, you had people like Kofi Kingston who were above him, right? Kofi Kingston was a mid-carder, you know, Cody Rhodes was an undercarder. Now nothing's changed. Kofi Kingston became world champion, actually, but Cody Rhodes comes back and they just gaslight us. They're like, oh, this guy's great. Remember him? Barely, you know? During that time, he was always in the back. Like, you'd see Cody Rhodes in squash matches, right? Or you'd see him if there's like some sort of event in the middle of the ring and there's like 30 people, he's like in the corner somewhere, you know? He was the Ludwig Kaiser of his time. You know what I mean? Ludwig Cody, motherfucks. And that's the problem, right? They just straight up lie to you. The issue that I have with this was highlighted by Rusev because Rusev just comes out there and says, no longer am I going to be like fighting for a country that I'm not from or a woman. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? That was the Rusev when he debuted. Like, a few years after that, he became just a regular guy. He lost all his gimmick. He didn't have a tank anymore. He wasn't presented as being from Russia. Lana was not presented as being his wife. He was just a random guy that would go out there and team with like Nakamura in meaningless tag team matches. You know? So like let's not pretend that like this whole Rusev gimmick, like the whole Russian, you know, like pawn of Putin kind of thing, like that all that stuff like held him back for years. That was like the thing that made him get over. He had like 2 years of that maybe, right? Then after that, the other like 6 years or 4 years, whatever the fuck it was, he wasn't doing that. So why wasn't he good back then, right? After he shed Lana, you know, after he moved on, after Rusev became just Rusev and they did Rusev Day, right? What prevented him from being good? Nothing, right? He just sucked. That was the problem. The problem was that there's other people in the company, like Sheamus, for example, who serve a similar niche, and they're better than him. So it's like, oh, you know, he sucked then, but now I'm supposed to believe that, well, now it's different. This time, Rusev left for 6 years. So what? Like, did he get better in the 6 years that he left? That almost never happens in real life. You know? Like, you ever hear like of somebody leaving the UFC and then coming back and being better than they were? It's rare, and it happens to young people. And if it happens, they let it show, right? Rusev is not going to come in there do anything different. He's going to do the same old phoned-in Rusev match, which, to be fair, is better than the phoned-in, like, I don't know, like, fucking Humberto Carrillo match, probably, like, in terms of, like, more exciting to see because you get to see, like, some throws and cool things like that. But it's nothing special, you know? The WWE is just straight up lying to you. They're just saying things like, oh, this person is so great. It's like, no, they're not great. You know, they're not fucking great, motherfucks. If they were great, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but I gotta bring it back to the Cuckster himself, right? If they were great, if Cody Rhodes was great, then there would be no reason why you'd have him feuding with like Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, right? There was no reason why Cody Rhodes would ever take a loss to JTG. You know, Cody Rhodes has lost to everyone you can think of and their uncle, right? Cody Rhodes was a jobber. Like, that's another thing that bothers me. People are like, he was a mid-carder. He was a mid-carder. And honestly, when Cody Rhodes started wearing the mask, and then when he took it off, he was my favorite wrestler. Boom. Big reveal to you motherfuckers, right? I was a big Cody Rhodes fan. I went to that Survivor Series, the one where The Rock and Cena teamed up in New York City in Madison Square Garden. And, like, my favorite part was Cody Rhodes. he was in the Randy Orton team, and I think it was the first time he came out with no mask. He was just Cody Rhodes again, right? And I was like, oh, cool, man. Cody Rhodes is finally getting his moment because he was getting over. You know what I mean? He was doing the work. He did really well with like the mask gimmick, right? But think about that. He did the work and nobody cared, and now he doesn't do the work. You know, I'm not going to count that if the TNA shit. Nobody can consider that a successful run. You can't even draw 500,000 people, right? But he did that, and now he's back, and he's a big deal. And people are surprised. How could the ratings be going down? It's better than it's ever been. Gee, dummy. Maybe it's because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, cuck. That's the problem right there. And in reality, if I'm being 100% honest, right, the fundamental issue with wrestlers coming back is that it creates a terrible precedent, right? It's like, don't work hard here. Just come here, dick around, get fired, and then when you come back, then we'll be ready for you, you know? It's just like, what the fuck's the point? Why'd you hire me at 19 if you were going to push me when I was 35? Or how the fuck, how old was Cody when he came in, like 35? You know? They had him literally since he was 19. They didn't give a shit. Then he goes elsewhere, and at 35, they hire him again. And he's like the number one guy in the company somehow, right? So it just sets a bad precedent. Why would anyone work hard when they're young to be good at wrestling, right? It's never going to lead to anything unless you're like Brock Lesnar. And quite frankly, even though I like Braun Breaker, I am under no delusions that Braun Breaker is on the level of like Lashley or, you know, Brock Lesnar. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like those guys are like once in a lifetime athletes, you know? So like, and to be fair, so is Braun Breaker, but not to the same beastly levels. You know what I mean? Like it's not, for example, it's not believable that Braun Breaker can beat up like Prime Kane, right? But it is believable that Lashley or or Lesnar could do it. Just on size alone, forget about the credentials, right? It's believable. It's like, all right, Lashley would have a chance. Look at him. He's a fucking freak of nature. Look at Brock Lesnar. This guy's got muscles and like up his ass. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm getting at here is like, we need something great, and the greatness is not going to be found by hiring Cody Rhodes. Now, to bring it back full circle before I conclude this video, this is the point, right? Because they can't find greatness, or perhaps don't want to find greatness, or perhaps they don't want to pay for greatness, right? They have to manufacture greatness. They have to tell you that Seth Rollins is one of the best ever. Your eyes tell you otherwise. You're like, this guy's a fucking loser. Like, this is like 100%. Seth Rollins was someone that, like, if Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker went to the same high school, Seth Rollins would be like the band geek or like the drama club kid that Braun Breaker would just bully in the school bus. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't even be like, they're not even the same species. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm getting at here is this. We need to hire cool people in WWE. They need to hire cool people, you know, so that we can get things that are entertaining. But instead, they've taken the low road, which is don't hire anyone cool, hire boring losers, and then tell them they're cool. And lastly, I want to quickly address why this is, right? There's a lot of speculation, but to me, it's all about the money, right? The reality is, if you have someone like Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, and quite frankly, even Roman Reigns, right? These guys, their career, like, it's funny. I was thinking about this while I was taking a shit, right? Like, every Samoan wants to be a football player. It's really big in their culture, and Samoans are significantly overrepresented, you know, in the NFL. They make good football players. Ain't no doubt about it, right? Especially like offensive linemen and shit. It's like, you'll watch some game and it'll be like, my name is Tua Talakalapulupulua, and I'm like 900 pounds on the offensive lineman. You know, good for him, you know? He made it, motherfucks. He did it. But here's the thing, you know what I'm saying? A lot of Samoans don't make it. The Usos and Roman Reigns, they all played football. They were all mediocre completely, right? And it's like at the end, when you don't make it in that, well, you don't have many options, right? Your options are now you're going to go get a regular people job. Maybe you'll work at Radio Shack or something. Fucking Radio Shack, what is this, the 90s? But you know what I mean? You'll work at like T-Mobile. You know, you'll be like selling phones. Nothing wrong with that at all. But obviously, it's not the same as being an NFL star, right? Because these people want to be stars. They want to be rich. They want to be famous. And you're not going to be famous working at T-Mobile. You know what I mean? But like, fortunately for them, and I don't shit on this at all because the hater understands nepotism, right? Their family is rooted in the WWE so they can go get jobs there, right? But the problem is, like, even then, right? It's like, imagine this. Imagine if Roman Reigns was good at football. Let's just say, let's fantasy book that Roman Reigns was the best, I want to say linebacker, but to make the example more reasonable, I'll say quarterback. Like, Roman Reigns is a good-looking guy, obviously, right? And if he was a good quarterback, right? He could be like the next Tom Brady. You know what I mean? He could have the same marketability, if you will, not marketing, but marketability as Tom Brady, right? You know, he could make more money in one commercial than he'll make in his entire WWE career, right? The WWE cannot afford to pay like Tom Brady to join the WWE because Tom Brady, when he's young, he has prospects in the NFL where he'll make more money, right? They can't afford to. So their best option is to find people that failed in sports, But the problem is those people just aren't very exciting. Because have you ever met like athletes? Even in college, have you ever met college athletes? They're boring as shit. All they do is talk about their own sport, right? They're boring motherfuckers. Stone Cold, The Rock, these guys, they are exceptions. You know what I mean? There are exceptions, of course, right? But the reality is, most wrestlers need to come from like a wrestling background. Like the archetypal wrestler for me is someone like Edge, right? Or Christian, right? These are not guys that when they were in high school, they're like, I want to be the star of like whatever, some Canadian football team, right? No, they were like, I want to be wrestlers, you know? But they're also cool, right? Christian and Edge are also cool guys. The problem is now they recruit only complete retards that don't know, they don't have any entertaining capabilities in their bodies. I'm talking about the entirety of the group Dark State. I'm talking about Obafemi. I'm talking about Tony D'Angelo. They give him a stupid Italian accent and they're like, oh, he's a collegiate wrestler. It's like, what the fuck? What kind of a mafia don goes and wrestles in college? Like that's never happened, motherfuckers. That's never fucking happened. Except for, John Gotti's like grandson who's like a boxer. But even that, boxing, like a noble sport, And then that's like one side of the equation. They get these behemoths, like in Dark State, these monsters, and they're like, oh, these guys, like they have nothing to offer, but they were good in college. Great. The other side of the coin is they get people like Xavier Woods, not Kofi. Kofi is closer to like Christian and Edge in that he's like a regular guy who wanted to be a wrestler, right? And he's kind of cool than someone he was when he debuted. But then they get people like, like Xavier Woods, like Chris Sabin. You know what I mean? These like complete dorks. They're like video game nerds. And like that's all they wanted to do, or CM Punk. That's all they wanted to do is read comic books and be a wrestler. But it's like they don't have the coolness on the other side of the spectrum, right? You have to be cool. You have to have the skills, the marketability, right? The Usos, Jey Uso's killing it, but the other ones, they're boring as shit. Like if you're being completely honest, like has Roman Reigns individually ever entertained anybody? Like realistically, has he entertained? Like have you looked forward to a match because Roman Reigns is there? Not because the WWE champion is there or the head of the table is there, but because Roman Reigns the wrestler is there, right? Personally, like if you compare him to The Rock, like The Rock is like 1,000 times better. Everybody knows. That's what I'm getting at, motherfuckers. But they gaslight us. They lie to us completely. They tell us that like up is down and down is up, and then they tell us, hey, you know what? Hey, you know how Drew McIntyre has sucked ass for 20 years? Well, you better see what's up his sleeve now because this is a new Drew McIntyre. Well, I got news for you, motherfuckers. The fans aren't buying it anymore. That's what I like to think, at least. You know what I mean? So that being said, let me close you motherfuckers off with my newest catchphrase. You know what I'm saying? How does it go again? Oh, here it is. 4 letters, 1 word. Cuck. Cuckolds.